Sarah William returned to her family villa after 20 years. 20 years since the tragedy. The locals greeted her with wary glances. Their whispers followed her like shadows. They remembered the stories. The whispers spoke of a curse upon the villa. Sarah shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. The villa stood on the cliff overlooking the stormy sea. Its once bright walls were now weathered and grey. The windows, like empty eyes, stared out at her. Sarah took a deep breath. She had to face her past. She had to uncover the truth. She had. The old housekeeper, Mrs. Abernathy, welcomed Sarah with trembling hands. Her eyes darted nervously around the dusty entrance hall. "Mrs. Abernathy, it's been a long time, Miss Sarah." Her voice shook with unspoken fear. "Sarah, too long, Mrs. Abernathy." Sarah replied, forcing a smile. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon her. The whispers seemed to echo through the empty halls. "Mrs. Abernathy." "The villa. It remembers," Mrs. Abernathy mumbled, more to herself than to Sarah. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Sarah felt a chill crawl down her spine. The villa was alive. She could feel it. The villa was a labyrinth of dark corridors and silent rooms. Each room held memories. Sarah wandered through them, her fingers trailing over dusty furniture. She could almost hear the echoes of her childhood laughter. But there were other sounds too. Whispers, rustling, things she couldn't quite place. The air grew colder as she climbed the grand staircase. It led to the attic where it had all happened. Sarah paused at the top of the stairs, her heart pounding. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her. She pushed open the heavy oak door. Section 4. Shadows in the attic. The attic was dark and oppressive. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light from a broken window. The air was thick with the smell of decay. Sarah stepped inside, her hand trembling on the doorknob. She could hear her own breath echoing in the silence. A sudden noise made her jump, a scraping sound like something being dragged across the floor. Sarah spun around, her eyes searching the darkness. There was nothing there, but the feeling of being watched intensified. Sarah felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. She was not alone. Section 5. The ghostly figure. The shadows in the attic seemed to deepen, swirling around her. Sarah felt a presence, cold and malevolent, watching her every move. Then she saw it. A figure, tall and gaunt, standing in the far corner of the attic. It was just a fleeting glimpse, a flicker of movement in the dim light, but it was enough to send a bolt of terror through Sarah's heart. She stumbled back, her hand grasping for support. Her fingers closed around something cold and hard. It was a doll, a porcelain doll, its painted eyes staring up at her with an eerie intensity. Section 6. The doll's curse. The doll felt strangely warm in Sarah's hand. It vibrated with an unnatural energy. Sarah gasped and dropped it to the floor. It landed with a soft thud, its porcelain face now illuminated by a faint, eerie glow. The temperature in the room plummeted. The ghostly figure solidified, stepping out of the shadows. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes burning with a cold fire. She was clutching a doll, identical to the one at Sarah's feet. "You took my daughter," the woman whispered, her voice filled with anguish and rage. "You took her from me." Sarah's blood ran cold. This was the source of the haunting. The truth, buried for 20 years, was about to be revealed.